And blessed to be a part of your day. Kevin Miller in the morning. Joining us now from the Clarion Project is Raheel Raza. Raheel, thank you for joining us.
With pleasure to be here. Thank you.
So let's talk a little bit about what's going on in the schools with the kids. What are they learning?
Well, this is not just what they're learning in schools, it's what they're not being taught. So we're looking at statistics provided by one of the programs at Georgetown on terrorism and by the FBI, which tells us that more than 100 American youth have been radicalized and have been sucked away to go and fight with ISIS and, various terrorist groups. So as a Clarion Project on whose advisory board I stand, we are concerned about the fact that this this violent ideology is not being addressed. There are programs called CVE, which is Countering Violent Extremism, which of course is about, the overt terrorism attacks that we've seen happen. But there are no national programs that counter this nonviolent extremism, the ideology, the teaching of radicalization. So this is a campaign that has been started by the Clarion Project. And with this, they're producing a documentary which will be released in the fall. It's called Jihad Generation. And it speaks about how young kids, teenagers are radicalized, both Muslim and non-Muslim. And we want to
hold on. Let me get a word in here at KIDO Talk Radio. Well, how does that work that a non-Muslim kid could be radicalized? Because we've heard about that, but what's the psychology behind that?
Well, the psychology behind this is pretty much the same as that which is used when kids are sucked into drug gangs and into violence. They look for those youth who are isolated, those who have a vacuum in their lives, those who have anger, and as you may be aware that, young people, especially young boys, are full of testosterone and they may have, various concerns and anger bubbling under the surface. And they target them by saying that they are bringing them into some sort of a brotherhood. It's like a cult that they are inviting them into, and they let them believe that they're going to be doing something that's going to change their lives and the lives of the world, and they're going to be able to take revenge, so to speak, on those who have not treated them well. And so they troll the internet, and there are thousands of young people like this. They are the ones who become part of gangs and have been speaking to organizations and agencies that deal with teen violence, and they say that the symptoms are exactly the same. The only difference is that when the Islamist extremists attract these young people into their ideology, they're putting a gun in their hand and teaching them how to kill. And they use incitement of hatred towards
what do they
the
hate?
status
What
quo.
What are they hating, though? I mean, they live in the suburbs. Most of these kids are pampered. But as you've said, this happens, and you have to wonder, what are they really tapping into? Most of these kids have this sense of entitlement, or do they?
Well, yes, they do, but there are also those who, have been sort of brainwashed. They've been reading stuff on the internet. They've been talking to people who tell them that, the administration is wrong, that the country is bad, that the values are wrong, and that, there's bad stuff happening. And they get sucked into that. It's very easy to do because if you, keep on repeating the same thing over and over again, it's the conversation around the dining room table. Now, when these kids don't have anyone who mentors them, if they have no one that they can go and discuss these issues logically, everybody has some sort of an angst. Not everybody loves the laws of the land in which they live, but they have to be democratic ways in which they can discuss them. What these extremists are doing is telling them that, you have been misused, you're a misfit, come to us, we will make you a great person, you will do something that will change the world. And so they give them a sense of belonging. And having spoken to some of the parents in this documentary, they say that, we saw the signs, but we didn't know what to do. And the other large part of this is the incitement towards hate, teaching them at a very young age to hate the other, because it's only when you hate someone that you can hurt them. No one is born a terrorist. No one is born a radical. Someone radicalizes them. And we want to know who that is. We want to go to the root of where the messaging is coming from.
Raheel Raza joining us as we continue on. Kevin Miller in the morning here at KIDO Talk Radio. So let's take a look at how do we stop this.
Well, we need to create educational programs. First of all, we have to create awareness. So we believe that, in the 3 E's, that we have to expose the problem, we have to educate the masses, and then we have to empower for change. So by exposing the problem, we need to speak to educators. We need to create educational programs so that they can look for these signs. I've been on the road traveling and speaking to different communities, and I was in Minneapolis where I met activists from the Somali community. And as you know, the Somali community is largely settled in the Minneapolis area. And they said that their youth have been radicalized to go and fight with Al-Shabaab, which is a Somali terrorist organization. I met Mothers Against Youth Radicalization, and they say, we know they're being radicalized, we just don't know what to do about it. So they're crying for help. They're reaching for help. What we can do is work with law enforcement, with security, with the government, and actually try to see if the government can have some programs which can talk about countering this ideology. And, there must be ways in which they can go to where the messaging is coming from. And the messaging has to stop. There has to be an alternate narrative. There has to be a safe space where these young people can address their concerns and their grievances. Whether they're real or not, it doesn't matter as long as they can talk about these issues. But that political correctness does not allow us to have these conversations.
Indeed.
So that's one of the big challenges.
Well, how many sleeper cells do you think we have here in this country?
I don't have any figures on that, but there's certainly, I know that the FBI is investigating terror cases and plots in 50 states. So we know that they must exist and that they are there. And the first part of addressing this problem is acknowledging that the problem exists. When a child is born, we inoculate the child against whatever virus may be around at that time, smallpox, polio, until they were eradicated. What we don't inoculate them against is the radicalization. That can start at a very young age and then lead on to their teen years. But according to research that has been done, we know that the extremists, almost 20% of their recruits are under 20. They do like to recruit young people because it's easier to manipulate them. It's easier to send them out into crowds and, turn them into suicide bombers.
Well, here's what goes into the idea that you can focus in on so much of a depravity of one's soul, or you're wallowing in whatever, that you would become a suicide bomber, especially if you were a kid that, let's say, grew up in Spokane, Washington. How does that happen?
Well, first of all, as I said, these kids already have a vacuum in their life. If they had a firm faith, if they had family support, they wouldn't be sucked in. But those who are already questioning. They are not 100% solid on the ground in terms of their faith and their ideology. And they are told that this is going to change the world, that they are going to leave a mark, that, this is a form of victory. They're told that, they glorify death. So the extremists make death glorious. And this is how these young people are trained. And of course, it happens over a period of time. It's not something that happens overnight. And this is why it's important to monitor these kids and to see what they're looking at on the internet. Who are they meeting? What are they reading? What are their interests? And, parents need to be aware. Teachers need to be aware. It's this idea of glorifying killing oneself and killing other people.
Well, Raheel, if people want information on this, what can they do?
They should sign up for the Clarion Project newsletter, www.clarionproject.org, and they can actually see a preview of the new documentary on their website. And if they sign up for the newsletter, they'll get information about what is happening in the world of radicalization, and they'll also hear human rights voices and voices of those who are bringing change.
Well, thank you very much. Take care of yourself.
My pleasure. Thanks a lot.
All right, 580-5436, 580-KIDO with our exclusive report of how young people are being radicalized here in Idaho and across the country. We'll get your reaction to that at 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Plus, back to our original story, should people be punished? Should people be jailed for not paying their debts? 580-5436, 580-KIDO. You're listening to Kevin Miller exclusively on KIDO Talk Radio. All right, top story in social media. It's not looking good for the Facebook. That's right. Facebook in a little bit of hot water because apparently they sold information to the Russians. Well, whoop-de-doo. And then all of a sudden the Russians or somebody used it to manipulate us. Now we're talking about regulating Facebook. I don't know. And I know some of you get on me sometimes about when I'm talking about regulation. Is Facebook really a public utility? Twitter? Snapchat? Now, a public utility is something you need, like water or electricity. Social media? Not really. You have the libs now wanting Mark Zuckerberg, who's an Uber lib, who helped elect and reelect Barack Obama. They want to call him before the Senate so he can answer some questions. Because apparently people can just buy any information they want on the Facebook and use it to their heart's content. And people are being manipulated. Well, look, social media is a choice. Putting Zuckerberg, the Zuck, up on the stand is not going to solve anything, is it? I mean, let's face it. I was catching a show, and it's funny, and I'm sure people say this about yours truly, maybe not so much anymore, but 23 years ago when I started as a baby host, the guy has no life experience. The guy, reads a magazine and thinks he knows things. And I had a chance to listen to a couple young people doing a radio show. And they said, well, Facebook needs to be regulated by the government. And they're calling themselves conservative, right? And people are upset about Facebook because they want transparency in disclosing Russian activity, often to the consternation of top executives, including Sheryl Sandberg, the chief operating officer. You know, this Russian thing is just a waste of time. It was never, as Sean Hannity has said here at KIDO Talk Radio, we were never supposed to learn about this, but Donald Trump won. As imperfect as he may be to some people, or as perfect as he may be, he won. And the idea that you got to fire Andrew McCabe from the FBI, that the FBI and others are not above, taking a look at things, it's crazy. It's crazy. But Facebook is not a public utility. And you can and as Facebook has done, if they don't like what you say, they can get rid of you. They can ban you, just like the YouTube and the Google and everything else. These are big monopolies. Now, you remember, or maybe some of you have read about the Bell Phone Company, right? That was deregulated, that the government took down because it was too big. Yeah, I guess you could say you don't really need a phone. Back in, the mid-'80s when they deregulated the phone business, when they broke up the big ominous Bell Company because they had too much of a monopoly. But think about this, the idea that the government is going to go after Facebook. What's next? We're going to have an independent prosecutor look at emojis? I mean, really, an independent prosecutor to look at emojis and how we deal with things? It's ridiculous. That's one topic at 580-5436, 580-KIDO. And then this issue involving our favorite state that mostly everybody is from, the state of California. I'm just going to read a couple things here where we're talking about Californians are fed up with housing costs, taxes. They're fleeing the state in big numbers. Really? Do you think about this? This is from CNBC. Californians fed up with housing costs and taxes are leaving. More Californians are moving from the Golden State, particularly lower-income residents, although even middle-class residents are saying bye-bye. The trend is a symptom of the state's housing crunch and, for some, high taxes. Really? Now, according to the United States Census Bureau, California lost just over 138,000 people to domestic migration in the 12 months ending in July 2017. Lower states as Arizona, Texas, Nevada are popular destinations for relocating Californians. Take that, Governor Brown. They still love, and we're kind of hurt that they didn't throw us in here, but you have people moving to lower-cost states because they can't afford to live there. And that's something that we talked about yesterday, the idea of people just sick and tired of the sanctuary cities, the oppressive taxes, and the high cost of living. Amazing. People continue to flock out of the state, and then you have a new movement in California to allow sections of the states to break away. I don't know about that. Traffic and weather together at KIDO Talk Radio. So back to this movement in California. There's a new California movement organized in 35 counties seeking to create two states in the state of California where there was one. Other plans have California splitting into 3 states or even 6. It should be noted that these new states would still be bigger than most of the East Coast and more populous than many in the West. Dwight, good morning. You're on with Kevin Miller here at KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Dwight.
Good morning, Kevin. Thanks for talking about the debtor thing. And I'd like to preface what I'm going to say by just saying, in my opinion, we as Americans, we need to change our culture of being in debt. But that's beyond the scope of what we're talking about here. So what I'd like to let everybody know is there has to be a conflict of interest and, in my opinion, criminality going on with the judges. Let me give some background. Judges make a cut on every fine that they levy now. This used to be broken out openly in the Idaho Code. It was $18 to the judge's retirement fund for any fine of $35 or more. Since the 1990s, this has been obfuscated, and I have not tracked it down as to exactly where it is or where they are hiding it. But I've been to the law library and had the librarian help me, and he couldn't find it. And I've talked to other government officials, and they can't find it. But I can assure you that this number has not been reduced. Another conflict of interest or scandal with the judges. Now, why am I talking about this? Why am I seemingly going off track? Because we need to go on offense. And if the judges are complicit in this, then we need to hit them where they're dirty. The Ada County Courthouse is a private corporation. The Ada County Courthouse is a private corporation with a Dun & Bradstreet report. And I have called Dun & Bradstreet and confirmed this. And I had a copy of the document generated in the Ada County Courthouse where the guy who's called the building manager is listed on the D&B report as the chief executive officer of County of Ada, which is what the D&B woman on the phone corrected me 2 times, and she said County of Ada. She would have nothing to do with Ada County of Idaho. That's what they called it. And another corruption of judges is that they lie to jurors about the jury's power to refuse to enforce bad laws. So what we need to do is we need to continue to call them on their corruptions and call them on this thing. And again, Kevin, I want to thank you and also let you know that on the parking thing, the Prius parking deal,
yeah,
I have noticed a dial back on what they're doing.
And for people that don't know, the car that runs around and zaps you for having an expired parking place.
I think they heard you, and I think the word came down from City Hall to chill.
Well, Dwight,
I don't see the I don't see the tickets like there used to be.
Well, that's the unique thing about the Treasure Valley. We could have a news story where it was, basically it was a verbatim of the press release that this is a good thing that they have a Prius roaming around making sure that the parking tickets are enforced. And it's a good thing because there's more revenue to the city. And I'm thinking, is anybody watching this have an issue with it? So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Dwight, have a good day. Kevin Miller in the morning here, 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Dr. Tommy Ahlquist will join us coming up after the news. He had a chance to catch some of your comments yesterday. He'll give us his thoughts on running for governor. He'll give us his thoughts on some of your concerns that you had concerning his candidacy and his platform. We look forward to that. Plus more of your phone calls. Remember, coming up this week, we'll be at Keller Supply. They're on Emerald, right by Treasure Valley Coffee. Your choice when it comes to faucets, when it comes to tubs, when it comes to just remodeling your kitchen or bathroom. Check out our friends at Keller Supply. You're listening to Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Doug. And we go out to the Newsmaker line. Dr. Tommy Ahlquist joins us. Dr. Ahlquist, good morning.
Good morning, Kevin. How are you?
Not bad. Your ears must have been burning. We had a lot of people unsolicited calling in to talk about your candidacy, sir.
Well, Kevin, I listen to you every morning. It's interesting. What I think the takeaway for me is, isn't it great that everyone is chiming in, and everyone is so involved in this primary? This primary election is about the future of Idaho. There's a lot of talk about the past and where we've been, but we have an amazing state with amazing people, and people have choices this time. And I love the dialogue. Couple of comments I have. We have 3 to 4 meet and greets a day. We are not in hiding, and I'd love to have all of your listeners or anyone who wants to meet us. That's what Idahoans want. They want to look you in the eye and shake your hand and understand what you're about. I love talking about our solutions. We've been all over the state for 14 months talking about those solutions, and there are conservative solutions to our biggest problems. Now, I get everyone's got their jerseys on. This is getting intense, and it should be, for crying out loud. We're talking about hiring the new CEO to run a state, and we've got a lot of issues that are facing us with growth in some parts and with shrinking economies in other parts, and we're not going to have one solution that fits everything. We're going to need to be strategic and smart and run these agencies like they're businesses, and I just can't wait to get in. It's one of those things, you talk about it so long, we're almost there, we're going to win this thing, and then we can actually start leading and bringing people together.
Well, and that's what surprised me when people were calling in, and I'm like, you're the most accessible candidate that we know of. I mean, truly, and people I've talked to on and off the record, they're always impressed with the time that they take with you because you listen to them, and a lot of people, as you know, they like to talk.
Kevin, there are no shortages of opinions. I get it. I mean, that's what's beautiful about our country is people can have opinions. And people are passionate about this election. Some people have their jerseys on for candidates, and good for them. That's the way it should be. So with a lot of people, no matter what you say, no matter what your solutions are, you're not going to convince them, and that's just fine. But, just yesterday we had a meet and greet in Boise. We had one in Middleton and one in Star. Each one of them were packed, jam-packed with people. The enthusiasm's there. I'll meet and talk with anyone about solutions to Idaho's problems. I can't wait to bring people together. But right now we're in a primary, and it should be heated. It's good for us. It's good for democracy. It's good for our state. And hopefully all the questions that people have about me, they're asking about these other candidates. The other thing that I'd say, Kevin, we're getting a lot of questions about ads and how heated this race is. I've been having my family and me and, everything in my record attacked for 14 months without any hesitation. People have been all over me. Everyone's records are going to be exposed, and I am happy. I am more than happy to have my record in the real world, my record in medicine, my record in business examined. It should be examined, but these other guys need to have their records examined too as career politicians. They've got records. They don't like to think they do, but they do, and unfortunately or fortunately for everyone, it's going to be exposed, and it's going to be heated in the next few weeks. There's only 57 or 6 days. I can't remember exactly, but it's almost over.
Dr. Tommy Ahlquist with us, Kevin Miller in the morning here at KIDO Talk Radio. What do you make of people that question your conservative credentials, sir?
I understand it. I totally understand it. They did the same thing with President Trump. I'm not a political insider. This state is run, period, by political insiders, by long-time political operatives that want to be in line the to take this job. I get that. So I understand that I'm not traditional. I understand I'm a business guy. I understand that a lot of things they criticize me of, they also criticize President Trump for. I understand that. I just hope that they truly do examine who I am and a lot of this garbage that's been put out there. That's what's nice about when people meet me and we can actually have an open discussion about where I stand. I mean, my goodness, Kevin, we've been handing out our plan for Idaho. It's very conservative. We've done it for a year now. We've gone all over the state. We had a 44 county tour in 44 days with 44 open houses, meet and greets where we hand out our blueprint everywhere. And anyone that knows me knows one thing. I do what I say I'm going to do. I do it with passion and I do it with integrity, and we will solve our problems with conservative solutions. But, there's people in this race that love the other guys, and you're not going to get them off that. That's what a primary is all about.
I agree. When we talk of the wages, that's going to be a big issue as well. How do we, and we've talked about this before here at KIDO Talk Radio, but for people that didn't hear that interview or some of the others that you've done, addressing low wages, is that an issue of state government to help us get the wages up?
It's a huge issue of state government, but it's not just one thing. People always say, what's the first thing you're going to do? Well, it's many things. Education is the foundation of our economy. And we right now are not getting it. K-12 and higher education, we have got to get vocational training down into our schools. We got to get these kids line of sight to jobs. It's completely doable and possible in this state. In fact, we're set up better than some states. Because of our rural nature, people already have this concept of internships. They know how to work. They understand grit. But let's connect these kids to the jobs that are right here in Idaho. Let's stop talking so much about just going on to college, and let's get vocational training. That will be a huge thing for wages. That alone will solve some of our biggest problems, especially in rural Idaho. The next thing we need to do, and which we're doing, and there's an Inspire Idaho program I'm part of, Kevin, where we're actually reaching out at 20 cities in Idaho to create a highway in to retrain some of these people with jobs that will be relevant in a modern economy. So there's a lot we can do there. The other thing that I talked about earlier ago is healthcare premiums. The joke has been on us for so long. And I see yesterday they're bringing back up Medicaid for everyone again. I can't understand our current politicians, the complete and absolute failure of career politicians to solve our biggest problem that affects wages and businesses in this state is healthcare. It is healthcare. We can solve it in a conservative way. We could do it right here in Idaho, and the bottom line changes to your business or your family income with premiums that are 50 or 60% less. That will affect everyone in their business. There are things we can do. We need to get through this. And, that's what I love about People's Choice. If you want someone from the outside that wants to come in with new ideas and a fresh approach and tackle these problems, then I'm your guy. And if you want someone from the inside, there are two other guys. And that's the beautiful, beautiful part about this. I'd love to compare my solutions because that's all I talk about is the solutions to our problems. And they're bold, they're aggressive, they're conservative, and they're completely possible in this state. 14 months ago when I started, I thought I had some good ideas, and I thought the reason for me entering this race was that it's time for someone that can actually get in with real-world experience to get it done. 14 months into this, Kevin, I've never been more excited, but I'm getting tired of talking about it. I'm ready to get in and actually work. And there is absolutely no substitute for just getting in and working our tails off for the people of Idaho. The people of Idaho, not the lobbyists, not the big businesses of Idaho. Every once in a while, Kevin, your interest, the people of Idaho's interests line up with big business in Idaho and the lobbyists, and then that's good for people. But if it doesn't matter. They don't care about the average person. They don't care about the average family or small business. That's the only thing we'll care about, and we're going to pull this state together.
Dr. Tommy Ahlquist with us, Kevin Miller here at KIDO Talk Radio, and that brings us to a point. Many people have become concerned about the power of the lobbying class in Boise. You've studied this. If elected, how would you handle their influence?
Well, first of all, there's not one of them behind me, so that's a good thing. We're going to get through this election without owing anybody anything, and I love that because I do not want to have that be part of me or why I'm doing this. I'm going to stay pure to who I'm going in for, and that's the people of Idaho. If you look at how things pass, what the agenda is down there, and how things roll through that legislature, we have really good people down in the legislature. That's the point that I want to make is I can't wait to work with them. But we need an executive branch of government that represents the people. Because if the same lobbyists influence the executive branch and the legislative branch, you get what you get, which is policy that is not in tune with the people of Idaho. That's why we have so many problems. There are things going great in Idaho for people like me and other big businesses. They're just doing just fine. But for our people, for our hardworking people, small businesses, they are not being adequately represented in this state. And we have a one-party system, which is another part of the problem. We need to get in there and actually serve the people with conservative solutions. And if you think that the current administration is doing that, they are not, period. They're not.
Dr. Ahlquist, a final question. There's been much debate about the CBD oils, the repeal of the grocery tax. If elected, how would you handle both of those issues?
Absolutely would repeal the grocery tax. I mean, that to me is so straightforward. And Kevin, I think I've told you this before, but we've been writing a business plan for every agency of state government. I promise you there is waste. There is waste. The government, they spend our money, they don't invest our money, and we will invest our money, and there is money. We do not need taxes on our groceries. That's one. Secondly, I've been out as early as anyone on CBD oil. When you extract the THC and you just have the CBD oil, I've met with families all across this state for a year. I'm a medical doctor. It makes no sense why we can't have that prescribed and in a safe way and treat these patients. It's sad what these patients have to go through, and there's a lot of uses for CBD oil. So I'm 100% for that, 100% against the legalization of marijuana. That's a totally separate issue. But let's legalize CBD oil. Let's repeal the grocery tax. And then, more importantly, let's actually have strategy and a plan. Let's believe data in Idaho. Let's have a legislative agenda that is not just 1 year. I mean, let's have a state of the state address that's not the opening argument, but the closing argument. So everyone know, hey, where are we headed with infrastructure and education and healthcare? That's the Idaho. People want an Idaho that's united on our biggest issues. Let's keep Idaho conservative, Kevin. That's the other thing. If we solve problems with conservative solutions and lead, we can keep Idaho. But if we just sit and talk about it like we do too much, these career politicians, they talk their heads off. I'm so tired of that. They will point to their voting record, this, that. Let's get some stuff done for the people of Idaho in a conservative way, and that will keep Idaho, not sitting and talking about it and doing all the things that they do behind closed doors. We need enough of that. Let's get some transparency and actually work for the people. We've got hardworking people. We need a government that works as hard as they do.
Well, Dr. Ahlquist, the transparency would be refreshing.
Oh, my goodness, Kevin. I mean, that's been the most – people say, what's been the most shocking thing getting into politics this year? It's been seeing the lack of transparency. It's been seeing the way things are done, even at a deeper level. You know, I've been able to get my nose under the circus tent just a little bit. As the outsider, nobody wants you under that circus tent, Kevin. They do not want you to know everything. We've been digging. We've been trying to get through budgets and trying to get into these agencies and understand what's going on. I cannot wait to get fully under that circus tent, look at things line item by line item, and represent the people of Idaho. We will work our tails off. We will do it for the right reasons, and I can't wait to do it, but we need transparency. Transparency helps both sides. That's the other thing I don't understand, is if we have transparency on both sides, that's the way you live your life. That's the way, if you demand excellence and transparency, if those two values make up everything you do, you get a lot done in life with those two things. And we'll pull that back into government. We need it in healthcare. We need it in transportation. You look at anything that's going on in the state, we need transparency and excellence. And if we demand that out of ourselves and everyone that works in that governor's office, you'll see things change.
Dr. Ahlquist, we always appreciate your time, sir. Thank you for listening, and thank you for phoning in.
Hey, thanks, Kevin. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Dr. Tommy Ahlquist answering your thoughts and your views about him from yesterday's program. Phone number's here, 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Let's go to Doug in Mountain Home with Kevin Miller at KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Doug.
Good morning, Kevin. Yeah, you got a good show going this morning. I like the guy that called in on the judges. You talk about corruption. I've got tickets, and it's definitely there. I mean, and you have no choice about paying it. So there you go. I mean, and the thing you're talking about, you know, arresting the people that owe money, the poor. Well, you can't just look what's going on with our politicians in D.C. I mean, there's so much scandal going on. Is any of them arrested? How much money have they stole from us? You know? And you don't see nothing happening to them, do you, Kevin?
No, you see, but somebody going in worth about $100,000 and coming out worth about $3 million.
Exactly. You know, and that one, the thing with the little Prius car running around with the tickets
Yes.
for parking stuff. You know, I don't know the whole scenario, but years ago, a guy I know went to court over that, wouldn't pay it, and he called extortion on it, and the judge looked right at the, I don't know if it's the prosecuting attorney, you know, lawyers or what, and they said, you know, I told you this is going to happen. They didn't make him pay it. You know, he just said, you know, it's extortion money. You guys are freaking out here writing tickets and making people pay. And he didn't pay it. And they didn't make him pay it. The other thing is that one with the breath analysis to start your car.
Yes.
I think every politician should have to do that on a lie. And they can't start their car and go to work. So there you go.
Thanks, Doug. Appreciate it. Let's go to Sky King with Kevin Miller at KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Sky King.
Good morning, Kelly. Kevin Miller, that is. Get my story correct here. Hey, Kevin, I see a double-edged sword with the hospitals and the health systems. As there's an article in the paper, you probably saw it here just a few days ago about St. Luke's being the largest employer in the state of Idaho. And St. Al's is quite a ways behind them. I think they're only about a third the size of St. Luke's. And that's the problem, is that they do a wonderful thing, and they have wonderful facilities, wonderful doctors and nurses, and they do earn their money. I have to agree with that. But when you come to the system of their nonprofit organizations, and they don't pay any taxes, they just bought the MK complex, and I used to work for that company years ago, and it's a huge 4-building complex that used to generate a lot of taxes for the state of Idaho, and because it was a large construction company. Now that St. Luke's has bought that facility, and they're going to transfer all their employees, at least most of the employees, to that facility, that's good for them, but it's not good for the tax base, because there is no taxes collected from a nonprofit organization. And when you see them growing to the largest employer in the state, it's on one end it's good for what they do, and on the other end there's no taxes. So I don't know the answer, Kevin. I just wondered what your input was on that.
Well, no, I would agree with you on that. And St. Luke's has been the largest employer in the state for quite some time, and you do see a turn from Morrison and Knudsen that did so much, MK, to now St. Luke's taking that over, and you're really shifting from capitalism to socialism. And look, St. Luke's does a great job. They're a wonderful organization. On the other hand, they work with people that have trouble paying, and I get that. But the idea that the growth is going at so much and there's no tax revenue coming in, well, then again, the governor just gave us all a tax break, or to some people. We're getting so much revenue in, but you're the canary in the coal mine right now, Sky King. You're right about that.
Well, I hope the gas doesn't catch me, but when you see they have to put those profits, or what would be profit, they have to stash them somewhere, and so they're buying up all the real estate and a number of buildings that are not even being used yet, and it alarms me because there's a good thing that's being misused, in my opinion, and it's taking advantage of a good situation and really putting the people at a disadvantage.
Well,
unfortunately, they're reaping the benefit of the good health care.
Well, and then you look at the state buying the HP campus as well. I mean, there goes that revenue. Sky King, I got to run, but thank you.
Thank you.
580-5436, 580-KIDO. Your thoughts on Dr. Ahlquist, on the state of Idaho, and, of course, nonprofits replacing for-profit enterprises when it comes to tax revenue. Those stories and more are next with me, Kevin Miller, on KIDO Talk Radio.